Right. I don't know what happened to did you start it, Jeremy? I don't see the attendee list coming through. Oh, there it goes. Yeah.
Good to go.
Nice. All right. We'll let a few more people join. Welcome, everyone. Last show of the year. I cannot believe that tomorrow is New Year's
New
or
Year's.
New Year's Eve,
Is that
rather.
crazy? New
Right?
Year's Eve. Yeah, is
Oh
that
my
crazy?
gosh. It's crazy.
What
So,
a year.
right? What a year. And
Yeah.
and
How are you doing, Sasha?
what a year ahead. I'm good. I was joking with Jeremy before you hopped on. So we're gonna knock on wood and hope that nobody knocks on my door while we're on this call, but I have a mouse in my house. And so pest control is coming to let this little mouse know that it needs to find a new home.
Well, I hear that there's a housing problem even with mice these days. I
Yeah.
saw I saw
I just
I
moved
saw a
into
possum.
a new place with new construction, and that's always
Yeah.
such a easy outlet for the little critters to come out of the woodworks, right?
Yeah, I was outside in my backyard this morning. I saw a neighborhood possum walk by. Like, oh
Oh,
goodness.
yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, great to have you back. And it's just us two today, and I'm excited for the conversation because, we've been talking a lot about as the year ends, looking ahead at 2025. And you sent over the weekend a text around the Treasury, the 10-year Treasury continuing to go up, which, I think even though it took a dip, it came back up, makes us continue to be concerned about a volatile market ahead as far as mortgage rates and continuing costs increasing, et cetera, are concerned. And so really looking forward to a conversation today about like the outlook for lenders in 2025 and what they can be thinking about now to prepare for what next year holds, because unfortunately, none of us have a crystal ball. But what
Is
it
that
looks
it?
like is a lot of preparing for all things and being ready to pivot.
Yeah, I mean, very true. I mean, let's start with yes, nobody has a crystal ball. Trust, take what we say with a grain of water,
Yeah.
grain of salt, whatever you want to say, right? Because we don't know, right? But you have to plan, right? And what you're seeing right now is that we we generally focus a lot on near-term rates, right? The Fed, where's the Fed? What's the Fed sentiment? Blah 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 blah, right? But the reality is that there's not a lot that the Fed, but the government, especially the Treasury, I mean, the Fed can do quite a bit actually with long-term rates, but it's a dangerous territory, right? It goes back to the era of quantitative easing, right? That's really the primary way that the government, whether it's the Fed or the Treasury, can impact rates in the longer run, right? Essentially, loading up the van, buying up long dated securities, primarily mortgage backs, right? But we finally gotten out of that, let's say, addiction, right? That sort of beset us for the last, about a decade after the the financial crisis. And I don't think anybody's really interested in getting back there,
Mhm.
number one. So, and as a result, right, there's not a lot that we as a government, or I guess the government can do, right? It's really the secondary market. It's really what the market says. And the market currently is telegraphing that it's very concerned about let's say, the midterm financial fiscal state of the government, right? And as a result, the market is selling off the longer dated securities, and you're seeing this, sort of divergence, and even though the near term rates have gone down pretty dramatically, right? Long-term rates, 10 years, are sort of getting close to where it was, back in September, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the first key, right? I mean, what does that mean, right? We can't, we can't wish upon a star. We can't look up. And little backstory, right? I was in DC a few weeks ago, actually about 2 weeks ago, and wandered into the National History, or actually Natural History Museum. Sorry,
Mhm.
all these Smithsonian
I
institutions
know
and all
there's
that.
so many.
I know, and it's like it's really old school, right? You got dinosaurs, you got like all these skeletons, and I'm sure that kids these days will be like, "Hey, what's up? What, they're not talking to me. What's going on here, right? But I wandered into the gift shop, and there was a T-shirt that was hilarious. It sort of basically it had a T-Rex that's looking up in the stars, right? The point was reach for the stars, and you see an asteroid coming down, and on the bottom it says, "Oops." Um, you know, I don't want to sound dramatic, but that's sort of where we are often,
Right.
right? We often feel like as an industry, we're looking up, you know, hoping for rain, right? Doing the rain dance, hoping for rain, right?
Yeah.
Um, why am I going into this anecdote? It's because we need to get beyond that, right? We need to start thinking about what we need to do to take, sort of take control of our futures.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And that's a little scary to think about reach for the stars and grab the wrong one.
Whoops,
Uh,
exactly.
but funny shirt. But to your point then, if you're a lender and you're not on the secondary side and you're not in some of those seats where you are going to be able to control the destiny, but rather it's managing, the situation, the market, the circumstances that you're under, what are you looking at in 2025 at this point with that outlook? Like where should they focus right now? Like New Year's going to be in 2 days, right? Where's the best use of their time to get prepared for, again, continued somewhat uncertain market?
Yeah, well, I think number one is follow the customer, right?
Mm,
We need to think about how you continue that relationship with the customer, right? It's not going to be necessarily going to be that refinance, that recapture of the,
right.
of an existing loan, right? But the customer's financial needs continue, right? And in many ways, we're in luck, right? We are seeing more and more products, more and more services that can be, put together, sort of integrated into a flow, right? um, that's out there, right? I think late last week, right? Robbie was talking to Spring EQ, right? Spring
Mhm,
EQ being a very good example of a home equity loan, right? That could be brought into an IMB's orbit, right? Into its bag of tricks,
mhm,
right? And that's not alone, right? You have other products, right? They may not provide you with the economics of a first mortgage, but they do help you keep your customers on side, right? So you're continuing that relationship. And I think that's going to be a very important part of it. And I think that's also an area where we can start talking about why do we need to think about product management as a discipline that's different than what we've done before.
yeah, it's a great point. And you see Louis in the chat saying that
Yeah. Thanks, Lou.
it is brilliant, but follow the customer. And it's not, we've all been customer centric in our intentions. It's not that we haven't been focused on, but I think to your point, if I'm reading between the lines, the needs of the customers have changed. The market continues to change. And so we have to rethink what being customer centric means. And to your point, follow them where they're at to meet them where they're at. And that includes diversifying your portfolio of products, which understandably is still a lift for lenders. They've got to think about what operationally they need to do to support those products. But what I'm hearing you say is right now, one of the best things you can do to prepare to follow for those customers is to look at where can you differentiate? Where can you bring in some of those unique products that really will keep that customer relationship alive?
Yeah, and I think the key here is how do you build up a capability within your shop to plan for this, right? If you think about the technology disruption that we've seen to date, right? Most of the tech has been around a single use case, right? Or
Mhm.
single, first
Yeah.
mortgage, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's uh, a purchase or refi, but that's a first mortgage. So you really did not need to think about product and technology separately. It's
Mhm.
all one and the same,
Yep.
right? It's very convenient in that way, right? But now what you're seeing is that the the use cases are proliferating. And I fully understand that the economics are very different, right? And we've all had efforts, you, Jeremy, and myself, in pushing a more broad-based product portfolio in a mortgage shop. And when, you know, every so often there's a refi wave, the natural thing, the rational thing is really focus on the refis, right? Because that was the biggest bang for the buck, right? But now when you're seeing a potentially prolonged drought, you
Hmm.
need to have a more diversified portfolio. And now that the tech and the product are diverging, right? Then you need to sort of find a way to figure out how do you build up that product capability, product competency within your organization that can manage, sort of manage that customer experience and really figure out what technology, what innovation can you bake into your shop.
And so Marvin, if we think about transitioning from now to next, so now let's say you go explore some new products you can bring in-house. You're not necessarily doing what we're about to talk about, which is really bringing it in-house and owning it and innovating, but you're augmenting what you have for the moment as a let's get ready to diversify the portfolio, meet our customers where they're at, and continue to follow them. The next is how do you start to lay the foundation for doing what you're speaking to, which is bring that more in-house and have the product and technology be more innovative from within. How does a lender think about even just where to start with that conversation?
Yeah. Well, one thing you shouldn't do is sort of bring in a large team of people to focus on this and, do what a big corporation can do, right?
Right.
I think what, let's be real, right? I mean, we need to think lean, right? We need to think about what's the biggest bang for the buck because we're not coming at it from from a vantage point of plenty, right? We want to be able to survive, right? Just like that dinosaur situation, right? We want to be the mice. We don't want to be the dinosaur in this case, right? Uh, so I think a really important part of it is finding partners, finding vendors, right? Technology suppliers, data suppliers, analytics that you can work with and really level up those conversations, right? Because traditionally, right, we've approached vendors as sort of order takers, right? Okay, we need to build out this product and we need this coming from you because something we have a better grasp on what's going on, right? But it's the tide is turning, right? So a lot of times vendors um, have a better perspective because they've seen this, right? You know, we could probably point to you, Sasha, and talk. Yeah, you can give a little bit about what you're seeing from Exactus's perspective, right? I mean, that's a great example of a vendor, of a potential partner, right? A partner who has a breadth of experience because they've had a lot more touches across that continuum than, say, an average lender.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up because when I started in mortgage, like everyone else that has their story around how they started in this industry, it's not like I woke up one morning and decided this is what I wanted to do when I grew up, right? And I came into the industry halfway through my career, but it was hard for me to figure out the why. I love the American dream, but it feels like it's everyone's why. And the more I've been in it, the more I've seen the opportunity of what you're just talking about, which is technology companies have one set of um, strengths, right? And lenders have another set of strengths, and they're not necessarily the same. But if they partnered properly together, there could be some significant magic. And I think, unfortunately, and this is just my personal opinion, is most technology companies that come into this space don't always have that depth and breadth of experience in the domain of mortgage or lending even. And so then there's this disconnect and a lender's like, but you don't understand what it's like to be in my shoes, right? You don't understand how to manufacture a loan. You don't understand like the day-to-day of what I go through and how to manage everything I have. And so, it's tricky because my passion has become like finding the companies that have that domain expertise and can and are willing to really partner with lenders in the trenches, because I don't think this is something that they can solve fully on their own. And there is something there that could be very interesting if we could bring the ecosystem closer together, right?
Yeah, and I think I totally agree with you. And actually, I'm going to make a prediction that I think in the next year, right, you'll see more of these, more more vendors, more partners really sort of realize that they need to focus, right?
Yeah.
They need to be, they're leveling up their ability, to play that game, right? To understand, truly understand the business, right? And not just be, slinging data, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's going to take time, but I like this idea of going from, instead of it being an order taking scenario, where can you find strategic partners? And it's going to vary, right? There are different
Yeah.
companies out there that are going to be right size, right time, right fit to have those conversations. And then others where it's not going to work out, and that's okay, right? Like you've got the
Yeah.
bigger companies where maybe it doesn't make sense, but they still provide you the things that you need at your core. And so you keep leveraging those guys for what you need. And you've got some smaller ones that might not have the capacity or ability, but there are probably some of those mid-sized companies that are out there that, if given the right opportunity, there could be some magic there. When you talk about thinking lean as a lender, I mean, that's one way. So partner with a company that is really going to understand you, meet you where you're at, and help you navigate, how can I create smart solutions so that I don't have to build everything in-house? What else do you feel like lenders should be thinking about?
Well, I think lenders need to, going back to the product management, right? Because you can't outsource. I mean, we did start by talking about partners, right? You definitely have to have the right partners, but you can't outsource everything, right?
Right.
To be able to build something that is, let's say, custom, at least in the delivery, right? Don't Not custom in the construction, right? Because that will probably take too long and require a lot, right? Unless you're really, really devoted for that. But creating that custom, sort of custom delivery of that solution, right? And to be able to, so that's where product management is important, right? And that's actually something that I've been spending time on. Actually, Jeremy and I have both, we've been collaborating, right? Try to bring together some of the leaders in the product leadership space within major IMBs and have a full, honest conversation about what makes it click, right? Because it is not a natural, um, it's not a natural function, right?
No, it's
Just
not a
because
muscle
of
that they've
everything
been
we've been talking
using.
about that, right?
Yeah.
It's not a natural function, but it's becoming more and more important. And you can see, we want to show that you have IMBs that are leading by example and trying to really understand, how do you take it to the next step, right? I mean, the old fashioned, and this is something a lot of people don't understand still, right? Not necessarily in the industry, but just in general, right? People don't understand, right? Banks are no, the old bank is no longer, right? Non-bank institutions are taking over more and more of that product, right, and the relationship, and there will be more opportunity, right? You're seeing this with the investor side, right,
Mhm.
coming in, and we're just in the early stages, right? I That's another prediction, right? We're going to see a lot more investors coming into the space with differentiated appetites, right? It's no longer going to be investor playing in the, you know, areas where GSEs do not even bother thinking about, right?
Right.
Now you're going to see investors coming in and start playing in the spaces where, let's say adjacent to the GSE loan, right? And be able to come up with competitive pricing, competitive products around that.
Yeah. I want to pivot us a little bit into later with a different spin. Like we went deep on product and how to start thinking about making that a part of your DNA. Part of what the landscape is going to look like next year is even more different because of the administration change. So we think about, to your point, there might be some new investors that start coming into the mix. I'm actually curious if you think any of the banks that have pulled back will lean back in if they see opportunity. And how does that change the competitive landscape for an IMB? And then also, likely a new head of FHFA, and then unknown on how quickly and what will change. Do the GSEs come out of conservatorship? Do they not, et cetera? So when you're thinking about all of those changes, not to pile it on, but all of those changes on top of everything we've already discussed, like where do you see a lender needing to think about now, but for the later, because these things take time and it won't happen overnight. But let's just say that those things do start to happen. That really does shift the competitive landscape for them, and they've got to keep their eye on the ball.
Yeah, and I think this goes to well, just like the dinosaur metaphor, right? Don't look for the stars, right? How do you not rely on exogenous factors, right?
Mm.
And what can you bring in, right? Okay, let's start with the big, I guess the big kahuna, which is like GSEs. Will they leave the conservatorship? Who knows, right? I mean, it's clearly there are a lot of issues from a rational person's perspective, right? A lot of issues, a lot of costs, all that, right? But my sense is, my view is that even in this sort of model, right, it doesn't matter whether the GSEs will leave the conservatorship. There is a probability, right? Probability that there will be more, given more capital coming into the market, more investors. Also, potentially, if we see a loosening of sort of the regulatory
Mhm.
uh, oversight, right? Opportunities for institutions, like you said, maybe banks may come back in, right? But one of the challenges is that how do they come in selectively, right? And we see
Mhm.
this, right? I mean, banks have dominate, for example, jumbos, right? Or maybe the near jumbo space, right? There are opportunities where if you can selectively price and sort of selectively roll out, right? What does that mean for IMBs? Well, I think this is going to be sort of the later is that you need to guarantee your later, right? Because I think there will be if you start having more differentiation or discrimination on pricing on product, right? I mean, we all know that MSR should be there. There are varied, pricing for MSRs, right? Certain MSRs should be priced a lot better than others, right? So if you see more discrimination on that, right, how can an IMB secure their own sort of, their own home turf, right, to protect themselves? Because if they don't, they can get, you can get into a situation you're getting squeezed on all sides, right? Volume players could be on one side who could deliver the cookie cutter as cheaply as possible. And then you have, banks and investors coming in and taking up the most profitable tranches, right? And then you're sort of stuck in the middle, right? You don't want to be in that situation. Therefore, it goes back to the point about following the customer,
Yeah.
finding, making sure you understand, right? You have your secured home turf with your customer base and try to build upon that.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so true because even though I know IMBs have stepped up significantly to fill in a void, I mean, we could have had a big gap in our market without them stepping in. And particularly in the government loan space, where we see a lot of continued effort towards affordability and access to homes for all. I don't anticipate that being an area that's as much of a threat, and they've got to continue to keep an eye on it. But to your point, there is this part where maybe banks do look at coming back in on the jumbo loan side. And so, again, it comes back to that core message of what you said. If you're following your customer, you're keeping them front and center, then, we don't have the crystal ball. We can't control our destiny, but perhaps we can manage it better and be prepared to manage it better.
Amen.
Right. So, well, any other thoughts on outlook for 2025 or things to be preparing? I feel like this has been a really robust conversation in 25 minutes.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm also looking forward to I guess the ending of sort of this month of
Yeah.
too much relaxation and family and all that. I don't know about you, but it's funny. We had family over and friends over, and yesterday finally everyone left. Just the nuclear family. I've got three sons, and we
Mm.
went to this brunch place, and it was pretty busy, and they couldn't fit all five of us together. So we like,
Hmm.
why don't we do this? My wife and I, we grabbed two seats and we let our sons, sit separately. Actually, they sat across the restaurant from us, and it was actually perfect, right? That's sort of back to normalcy for us.
Yeah, interesting concept and, like almost like letting them have an opportunity not just to lean into their brotherhood with one another, but like kind of be on their own and, just interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and you should have heard the conversation. It's
Oh,
not
I'm
what you
sure.
expect. The oldest one who just graduated from college was just really leaning into the whole job search, internship search
Oh,
for on number two, who's a sophomore in college. It's like, wow, like mom and dad wouldn't even be this so harsh about this whole thing. It's like, okay, well, that's a good thing. We basically set and forget, let them handle themselves.
yeah.
Raised by wolves,
Well, you're raised by wolves. They're the future generation of buyers. So, we need them to think independently and get
Exactly,
out there and,
exactly,
and make their income so that they can buy a home too.
exactly. That's
Oh
exactly it.
man. All right. Well,
It
I really appreciated you coming back on again, Marvin. I think, there's
was a
so many
lot of fun.
topics that we could continue to dive into, and I anticipate we'll have you on more next year. And thank you so much. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year too, Sasha.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Okay.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.